Hey, everybody, this is Alex and Reagan. Welcome back to another episode of the Oregon Bridge.
My goal is to flip Oregon, period. That was the reason this year I met with President Trump and personally talked to him about coming to Oregon, targeting Oregon, help us to flip Oregon 2024. As America First president, he should think about how to fight for all Americans, regardless of blue state, red state, swing states.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode. Today, we are really excited to bring you Oregon Republican National Committeeman Solomon Yu. Solomon Yu, crazy background story, talked about growing up in China. He was detained during Mao's Cultural Revolution, which was essentially you can find tons of information about it online, but he was essentially tortured by the Chinese Communist Party. He was able to escape both with family connections as well as with connections to the Methodist Church. And he tells that story about his upbringing, which is really powerful and really enduring and fascinating. He's a really well-known player in the Oregon political scene. He's held a number of different positions in the state party, and he is denoted as also one of the most conservative members at the Republican National Committee, which is essentially the governing body of the Republican National Committee, which of course is the primary vehicle for the party. So we talk a lot about politics in this episode, talk about Solomon's take both on the state of the race for 2024, what's going on with the Oregon GOP, and then, some other different topics as well. But Reagan, what'd you think about the episode?
I think that I kind of felt like I was deep inside the Oregon Republican Party apparatus and the RNC. I've never been, super important in Oregon Republican politics, but Solomon has been up there for a long time. And I just felt like we had the inside track in terms of like learning what's going on and getting some great stories from the past as well. Some of this like party history stuff that really doesn't get recorded. And so it kind of just gets lost to time, honestly. And so it was really great to kind of hear some of those things. And, we get a pretty big peek, honestly, inside 2024, both in Oregon and then at the national level too. So I thought it was super interesting. And I would encourage my Democratic friends to just kind of learn a little bit about the Republican Party, get some information and understand kind of, what this is a very Republican centric episode, but I think you can learn a lot from it. Even if you don't agree with the Republican Party or Donald Trump or the positions that they held.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's be quite interesting for Democratic viewers who or listeners who I know are always really interested in a lot of our Republican guests, just because Oregon pretty dominated by Democrats. Love to kind of learn a little bit more about the other side. But really excited for the episode, and we'll just go ahead and dive right in. Thanks, everybody.
Uh-huh.
Now that the legislative session is over, it's time for Oregon's activists, candidates, and political committees to turn their attention to the 2024 elections. With government regulation of political activities becoming more complicated nearly every year, and with political actors increasingly initiating complaints and litigation to achieve political goals, having experienced legal counsel has become critical to success in the political arena. Harang Long PC has represented clients involved in candidate and ballot measure elections for decades. To learn more about Harang Long's political law practice, check out our website at harang.com. That's www.harrang.com.
All right, everybody, this is Alex. Welcome back to another episode of the Oregon Bridge. Today, we are very excited to have Oregon's Republican National Committeeman, Solomon Yu, with us. Solomon, how's it going?
Wonderful. And I'm so happy to be with you today.
Great. And where are you coming at us? I know you're at your house right now. Where are you currently located?
Salem, Oregon, out of my home office.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, we would have just sent Reagan over to your house or vice versa if we if we knew you're in your home office. But very good. But Solomon, you have a really interesting background. Definitely want to talk more about your position with the RNC, about Oregon politics, the GOP side of things, the 2024 presidential primary. But you have a really interesting background story. I know that you're an immigrant from China. I believe that your family had come over here during the Cultural Revolution. Tell us a little bit just about your upbringing. Were you old enough to remember still time in China, or were you a young child when your family had escaped? Give us a little bit of background kind of on that piece of your life, and then also how you made it over to Oregon.
Certainly. I was born in communist China. And because of my grandfather, the day I was born, I earned 3 labels. He was a capitalist, owned a tailor shop in Hong Kong. So I was offspring, a capitalist pig. And he was elder of Shanghai Methodist Church. Now, in communism, they consider religion is opium for the masses. So officially, they label me as offspring of a spiritual opium pusher. That's my grandfather. And the last one was even worse. My late grandfather, Jiang Yu, worked for British concession. After Opium's War, Shanghai was divided into several foreign concessions. He was responsible for Chinese cops as deputy commissioner. And so that means he worked for a foreign power. Then communist government consider him as enemy of the state. Then I was offspring of enemy of the state. So with that kind of background, and our house was searched during Mao's Cultural Revolution, and also I couldn't keep my mouth shut, so I was sent to countryside to be re-educated by farmers.
Oh, so you were actually sent to a re-education camp yourself.
That's correct. And because the story go like this, and all the kids from bad families, okay, and got to criticize your parents, your grandparents, in my case, criticize my grandpa. But I actually took the opportunity without knowing what capitalism really was that time and defended capitalism. So I used my logic and arguing that for my grandfather to stay in business and have repeat clients, he had to satisfy the needs of his people, his clients. And without that, he would not have repeat business, and he would not be able to support. I think he got 12 tailors working for him and 12 working families. And if satisfy the needs of the people and support workers and their families, why this is evil? So that question got me to write self-criticism for next 3 days. And then next thing was, it's time to criticize capitalism, overproduce, and artificially to keep the price down. They use milk as an example. They dump the milk in the ocean, the capitalists. And so poor people would not have any milk. So I challenged the authority again. I raised my hand, say, on my way to school, I saw a line 5 blocks long for milk. If socialism, communism is superior, would you say we should produce more milk than the capitalists? That question earned me to be re-educated by farmers. Now, actually is a humiliation what they did to me was that I was forced to use my bare hands to spread fresh caught dung in the rice paddy. And so, but I was lucky, I escaped 3 days later. So this kind of ongoing situation, and my parents were told, if by Chinese government, if you guys couldn't keep your son mouth shut, we couldn't make him disappear in the night, and you would pay for the bullet.
Wow.
It really scared my parents. So my dad called my late grandfather, Zhang Yu. Guess what? He escaped after 1949 communist liberation, and went to Hong Kong, opened his tailor shop again, got involved with Hong Kong Methodist Church. So that year, and the grandfather was attending 1980 summer. Grandfather was attending World Methodist Church conference in Hawaii and ran into his friend, Dr. Glenn Orts, a Democrat, a liberal, but he was president of Alaska Pacific University, formerly Alaska Methodist University. So my grandfather basically told him his grandkid is in trouble and couldn't keep his mouth shut. And one day he is going to disappear in the night. And Dr. Orts said, don't worry, I get him a scholarship to study at Alaska Pacific University. And he would write to U.S. Consul General in Shanghai to get me a student visa, because he was U.S. ambassador to UNICEF under President Kennedy. So my Methodist connection, my Democrat connection paid off. Within 3 months, I got my Chinese passport, got my U.S. student visa, and got my scholarship, came to America, landed in Anchorage, Alaska on October 23rd, 1980. That was my Freedom Day. And
Wow.
I only knew thank you and Coca-Cola. So from that point on, I attended English Language Institute and study from ABCD all the way to my master's degree in international trade.
Wow.
So
Okay. And one, do you think that because I know, I mean, at least from today, the Chinese Communist Party has taken a substantially tighter grip on Hong Kong, but I do know that Hong Kong used to at least have more flexibility, self-governance back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Was that really the reason you were able to get the visa and escape, you think, because you were in Hong Kong? If you were located in mainland China, do you think that you would not have been able to escape then?
The reason I escaped because I got a visa, and that time no airline flights. I took the train for 24 hours from Shanghai to Guangzhou. Then get off the train and carry my suitcase, cross the bridge. I turn around and show my middle finger, and go through Hong Kong immigration. And my grandpa was on the other side waiting for me. And then he flew me from Hong Kong to Anchorage, Alaska. So that's how I came out.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so you get to the U.S., you get to Alaska, go around, get your master's degree. How did you eventually end up in Oregon?
Oh, Oregon was a story of I got married in Anchorage, Alaska, to a Greek immigrant who was a physician. And she got an offer to come to Salem, Oregon, to buy a medical clinic. And two of us came here and realized Salem, Oregon, you don't have to buy anybody's clinic, because you got lots of retirees, they begging doctors take them on as new patients. So my MBA paid off. I said, you don't have to. I said to my late wife, Dr. Yu, I said, I can help you open the clinic, put your single on and across the street from the clinic you want to buy, and you can be in business immediately. I can help you to run your, clinic as your office manager. That's what I did, in addition to my medical glove, manufacturing, importing, wholesaling business.
Well, that is really an incredible story, and thank you for sharing that with us, Solomon. I think unfortunately, it's just a little bit too rare to hear these stories, and so I think it's super important that they get shared, and so hopefully our listeners are able to learn about it and come to understanding just how really troublesome and dangerous and just outright controlling the communist regime is in China.
Yes, absolutely. And they are here as well. That's the thing we have to be concerned of.
So I want to pivot now into your, years as well, first, how did you get started in Republican politics? And then we'll kind of talk specifically about the RNC and how you got involved there. But what got you started in Republican politics?
What got me started in Republican politics, because two people I was working for, Alaska World Trade Corporation, they're the one applied my green card for me under third preference, expert in the field. And the U.S. Department of Labor gave me a title, international trade specialist, economist, actually. And John Daley was campaign chairman for then U.S. Senator Frank Murkowski. And Richard Lyon was a commissioner for Alaska government Commerce Department. He's another Republican. That's how they got me exposed to Republican Party politics immediately. However, if you remember, I came to this country in 1980, October. That was presidential election year. I didn't speak any language. However, I knew that the candidate I want to support was Ronald Reagan. The reason was very simple. Chinese communist government already endorsed Jimmy Carter. So guys like me naturally would support Jimmy Carter's opposition or communist opposition, right? And so I wanted to learn more about Reagan's platform through an interpreter, because I didn't speak any language. The minute he told me Reagan stand for bring down the evil empire and do away, defeat USSR. I said, that is my man. Which party he belonged to? Republican Party. Then I told the interpreter, Republican Party is my home party. So Republican Party become my political home. And ever since, as a student, I was a volunteer working for Republican Party in Anchorage, Alaska. And but Anchorage, Alaska politics is more clear. Conservatives behave like conservatives, Republicans behave like Republicans, and Democrats behave like Democrats. And when my late wife and I moved to Salem, Oregon, I said, oh my God. I saw the Republicans behave in Oregon. I thought what we were in the wrong state. And so first thing I did was I reached out to Polk County Republican Party Chairman Ron Fenster. Actually, I believe Reagan, your dad, Tim Knopp, was county chairman as well, Deschutes. And so that time, Clinton's was pushing Hillary Care from physician perspective, from freedom perspective. That is socialism. And so I talked to Ron Fenster, and he said, I want you to organize healthcare reform against healthcare care, and name me as a chairman. Then he went to state party, and county by county, 2 of us organize and recruit people to join. That's how I got exposed to Oregon Republican Party politics. Then I got elected as a vice chair of Polk County, then chair of Polk County, then national committeeman. You cut
Sorry, I
out.
went on mute there for a second. I was coughing and then said I forgot to unmute myself. So bad podcast etiquette. So what came first for you? Was it Republicans overseas or was it RNC committeeman? Because those are the 2 main things I think most people know you for.
Right. RNC committeeman in 2000, then 2014, Republicans abroad closed their shop after Romney lost the election. And during that time, I actually was representing RNC and Chairman Reince Priebus to attend Republicans abroad meetings in London, in France, in Paris, all those places. And I realized we had a little problem there, and they treat Republicans abroad organization as a country club. They get together once a month for dinner or for lunch and talk about what's in the news, what's hot, and what is cool, things like that. And they don't focus on voter registration, get out a vote, and they don't even focus on 9 million overseas Americans got double taxed by US government because they have to pay. Let's say you're working in London, you pay London Queen's tax as well, Uncle Sam's tax. And so they've been treated as second-class citizens. And so they closed, Republicans abroad closed the shop, and those country chapter leaders reach out to me and ask me and several RNC members, would you guys consider start a Republicans overseas? They say, yes, we would, but we will totally shift the focus from issue representation, i.e. ending double taxation for you guys, to voter registration and get out the vote. Now, 2020, actually, we got one chapter out of Greece. Republicans overseas Greece delivered 20,000 votes to Florida alone, just Florida, because lots of Greek citizens, Greek Americans, they came to Florida doing sponge diving business, and then retired. They take their pension and Social Security checks, move back to Greece. And so, because their connection still got a connection back in Florida, and which was very important to them to vote in Florida. And that's how we deliver Trump's victory in Florida. So that helps.
That's fantastic. So now I want to talk about your kind of main role, which is RNC committeeman. What you said you got elected in 2000. What's kind of your day-to-day look like? And has it been different or has it evolved, or has it kind of stayed the same?
Actually, from a RNC committeeman representing Oregon perspective, I always have 3 objectives. First, regarding ORP, my goal is to flip Oregon, period. So find a way to build the state party and looking for opportunity to flip Oregon. That was the reason this year I met with President Trump and personally talked to him about coming to Oregon, targeting Oregon, help us to flip Oregon 2024. And the reason is very, very simple. Chris Barreto moved to Idaho. and Jeff Reynolds moved to Florida. You can't have more conservatives move out of state, and we got to stop hemorrhaging. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to flip Oregon because we just don't have the numbers. And then on top of it, we have to deal with voter apathy. And you probably would know better than I do. You heard this kind of talking, and Oregon is a vote by mail state, and whatever you do doesn't make any difference. That's wrong. If you think about it, if we had a little over, let's say, 4,000 votes, and last cycle, 2022, and we could have taken the House 6 seats. And as little as 200 votes, as little as 200 votes, as many as 900 votes, we can cover 6 seats. And so that's something, I told the president, we can do it, but we need a leadership, we need a vision, and as America First president, and he should think about how to fight for all Americans, regardless of blue state, red state, swing states. So I got a yes on the spot. He said, let's do it.
That's great. So what does that mean for Oregon then, having President Trump have that kind of focus? Are there any specifics that come with that, or is it details that they'll have to work out as the campaign unfolds?
For one thing, it's more like building one step at a time. I know what his campaign is asking for. His campaign is asking for winner takes all. Do a bylaws amendment within ORP. And also his campaign wanted ORP to fill out a rally request form, and so just make it an official request. And also my next step is working with campaign to set up campaign infrastructure early, way early. Usually they set up infrastructure 2024, which is presidential election year, but you want to do it much earlier, like this year, right? So I'm working on that goal at this point. So that's the portion on flip state. Also, I share with President Trump that we have a golden opportunity to turn out our voters. And I used Oregon constitutional carry ballot measure as example. And I remind everybody, including his campaign members and campaign teams, and during Bush 43 re-election, and Karl Rove went to state party after state party, asking state party to put a ballot measure on the ballot. Marriage is between man and woman, to turn out evangelical voters. It worked. 43 got re-elected. And so we have a constitutional carry ballot measure and is ready to get signatures. And as a matter of fact, I said, this ballot measure really cut across political spectrum. Democrats can support that. Independents, non-affiliated Republicans, they all can support that. So with that in mind, it will be very, very helpful to his goal, winning Oregon, to our goal, help us to flip Oregon. And so as a matter of fact, on July 29th, Kari Lake is coming in, do a fundraising event for Oregon constitutional carry. So things are happening for the purpose of flip Oregon. Now that's for Oregon side. Nationally, I have two responsibilities because Republican National Committee is a presidential committee and responsible for electing a Republican president, after Republican president elected, you support Republican president's policy, support the White House. And that's the only job, nationally speaking. But at the same time, I have one more portfolio, which is on the policy side. On the policy side, I usually offer and pass RNC resolutions in support of president's policy, current policy, or presidential future policy. Good example was 2021, I passed a RNC resolution to hold CCP China accountable for Wuhan virus bioattack. And that policy now is part of a presidential campaign platform. If you hear Trump talking about 3 things he wants to do to China, one is take away their favorite trade status, favorite nation trade, favorite nation trade status, as well as hold them accountable for Wuhan virus bioattack, and with reparations, and also want to make sure that they no longer steal our intellectual properties. And so all that now is become a campaign policies or campaign positions. So that's what I do.
That makes sense to me. And I think that it's kind of a unique role. We only have 2, right? We have 3 votes the Oregon Republican Party does at the RNC. It's the chairman and then the committee man and the committee woman, right?
That's correct.
So and since you've been doing it since 2000, I mean, you've got a lot of experience. And one of the big points where the RNC became nationally noticed was the battle for the 2016 nomination. And there was, I believe you were on the rules committee, it sounds like, and there was a talk of a rule change at the convention or prior to the convention. Do you remember that? And could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that story is kind of super fascinating.
Certainly. And from that story, actually, I fought and defended Trump's nomination twice. When Reince came to me and talked about we need to parachute a different candidate to be the nominee, i.e. Paul Ryan. And my initial reaction was, no, you can't do that. The reason is I am a constitutionalist. The rule of law is very, very important because it is one of the cornerstones of this republic. And Trump accumulated enough delegates to win the nomination by fighting, primary after primary, and per our RNC standing rules. Now suddenly, guess what? We're going to parachute a white knight. That's the term they're using. And to save the White House fight, because establishment didn't think Trump can win the election, defeat Hillary. From that perspective, I thought that was so wrong. And so I said, I'm not going to be part of that. And what are you going to do? You guys are going to, they're going to use the House rule. House rule, the Speaker of the House then was Paul Ryan, and he can use the House rule. House rule, only 5 people in the nation really know what's in it. But I can tell you one thing, House rule give presiding officer absolute power. It means when he decides to do something, nobody, the body, and delegates to RNC National Convention, they didn't have to vote on it. So to deal with that scenario, I introduced Robert's Rule of Order. At least the delegates, 50+1, a simple majority delegates must vote when somebody wants to introduce a new candidate And based on that, we fought real hard, and the articles were written. And during RNC Standing Rules Committee to pass my amendment, and we had 72 reporters there, 14 cameras there, and by end of the day, actually, I was a lonely voice, and they voted me down. But General Counsel John Ryder, former General Counsel and who passed away, John Ryder, and made an announcement. RNC will also allow RNC standing rules to be used for the nomination process and to govern the convention. Now, he also explained RNC standing rules required 2/3 of the majority to do anything at a convention. So from that perspective, I win big, because now I don't have to use Roberts when a simple majority, and you got RNC 2/3, a rule to protect Trump's nomination. So that fight was just over. Then a Colorado delegate for Ted Cruz start a movement, vote for your conscience card, and basically ask all delegates to National Convention abandon or violate our state law. In Oregon, state law says if you are a delegate for Trump, you have to vote for Trump twice. Same thing, if you're a delegate for Ted Cruz, you have to vote for Ted Cruz twice, then you can become a free agent. So the movement, Vote Your Conscience movement, basically ask all of us abandon our state law and vote for the candidate we like to vote. So that's total violate, the RNC rule to begin with, and also violate our state law, and our delegates would have a problem. So what I did was I introduced another rule amendment. Anything past the convention as a rule will not take effect until the convention is over. That's how we defeated Vote Your Conscience. So I fought for Trump twice in 2016.
Wow, that was a pretty nationally reported story, as you noted. So I think that was important to share. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. And then Solomon, do want to shift the focus back to Oregon, but I do have just one question we wanted to hear your take on. So let's chat, a little bit about kind of the Republican field and how it's shaping up for 2024. Could you kind of give us obviously, I'm sure you're, meeting with a lot of the candidates. You obviously, I know, just had a, one-on-one sit down from the sound of it with President Trump. I'm sure that other campaigns have probably reached out to you as well. Can you just kind of give us an overview of the field on the Republican side for 2024, and then your thoughts on who you think is kind of, which I'm assuming you're probably going to say President Trump, and given most of the polls are showing him pretty far ahead of the other candidates, but just kind of curious of your thoughts on the current state of the 2024 Republican primary.
Okay, let me do a disclaimer. Because I serve on RNC Presidential Debates Committee, two things I am not allowed to do. One is endorse Trump or any other candidate, or donate money to Trump or any candidate. But I can do a political analysis for you too. And what I see is that Trump, this nomination, Trump is running away with this nomination. And the reason is very, very simple. The grassroots, the Republicans, average voting members, and rank and file Republican voters felt when 2020 election was stolen from him. That's one. And two, ever since, they tried to politically persecute him. And actually, once he got elected, they already start that. If you remember, Russia, and all 2 impeachments, all that happened. So there is a thing, what I call the kind of resentment is building up. And whatever other candidates say and do won't make any difference. And as a matter of fact, after DOJ indictment, and he did 2 things, his poll number is keep going up. At the same time, he's pulling in big buck. And so I don't think anybody can catch up with him. However, as somebody served on RNC Standing Rules Committee, I see a movement. I also heard rumors that somebody may want to, not from Trump's side, obviously, somebody from the other side wants to do 2 things: to beat back winner takes all, go back to award delegates based on the percentage of votes you are getting, proportionality.
Yeah, I saw there was a huge debate about this with California right now, and people were saying
Yes.
is it going to be winner take all? Are they going to move back to proportional? Yeah, I've seen a lot of people on, I guess, the conservative Twitter kind of arguing about that back and forth. So I know that's a fairly contentious rule, potential
Right.
change, and things folks are pushing both ways right now. So
Solomon, is Oregon is a proportional state, and we would need to switch to winner take all if we wanted to do that?
Oregon is a proportionality state, and
okay.
that was one of the reasons. If you remember, I said Trump campaign is talking to Chairman Justin Wong and see if Oregon would adopt winner takes all. Now, things like this, I usually have no say. I don't weigh in at a state level because this kind of stuff I'd rather leave to Central Committee members and convention goers to decide. And but my thinking is, it doesn't matter. Proportionality wins the day, or winner takes all wins the day, and Trump will be nominated just because his number in battleground states and Super Tuesday states, and it's overwhelming. There is no way you can overcome that. As a matter of fact, all the indictment, all this kind of stuff only get our grassroots motivated. And the kind of, they want to get into DOJ's face and Joe Biden's face. And the only thing I see, and I heard rumor, is that that could be another move. Another move is change the bylaw. I'm sorry, not bylaw. Change the RNC rule. We call at the RNC level, you call RNC rule. Change the RNC rule, forbid a candidate who has been a convict and to accept party's nomination. Currently, it's not in the rule, and currently, U.S. Constitution does not even have that, address that. And but there are rumors, and somebody wants to propose that. So based on this, I don't think it's constitutional to begin with. And on top of it, think about during Founding Fathers Revolution. Founders would be considered by King George as criminals, right? And so based on that, knowing Democrats' political weaponize and the justice system and go after Trump and politically persecute him. And he should be perceived as our hero and not impose this kind of rule to steal nomination from him. So that would be my argument, and I feel very comfortable to make such an argument.
Yeah, and then Solomon, I did have one potentially quick question before we pivot back to Oregon. Is Do you think the debate is actually going? So I know there's certainly going to be a debate. I think it's in Milwaukee. It's in August. Uh, from my understanding, Trump is actually considering skipping the debate, and the DeSantis super PAC said if Trump skips the debate, DeSantis will probably skip the debate because I think they quote said it was a two-man race, which I think is probably accurate, basically, if you look at the public polls. But any chance you think Trump actually skips that debate? DeSantis skips the debate? You think they'll both show up? Do you think the debate might be canceled if neither of them show up? Kind of curious of what the RNC is thinking about that.
I believe both will show up. And, you know, Trump is a poker player. And if you think about what he did, he said the same thing about not attending RNC sponsored debate during the day Joe Biden made his announcement to run for re-election. So yeah, he's a poker player.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
Alex, it looks like I just saw from Never Back Down, which I think is the super PAC for DeSantis. He's a clip on Fox News saying that he will be at the debate regardless of whether Trump shows up, which is interesting.
Okay. Well, thank you for the real-time news update, Reagan.
Yeah,
Like that.
absolutely.
So-
I had seen that earlier and I went back to double check, and it looks like that's what they've said. But I think that is pretty recent. So
Gotcha. Okay. And then Solomon did want to quickly just pivot back to Oregon and ask maybe just two more questions, since I know we're
Sure.
pretty low on time here. And thank you so much for being generous with your time. So I think that a lot of folks from all sides of the party in Oregon, whether you look at the more sort of moderate folks or if you look at the more sort of conservative grassroots folks, I think if you got everybody in a room, they would say there's quite a bit of dysfunction with the Oregon GOP, and that there has been for a number of years, specifically with the state party entity itself. I'm kind of curious from your perspective of, what are, let's say, which obviously, I mean, it's not like you're going to run for chairman. You're obviously an RNC committeeman, which I imagine those are pretty much on one is national, one's more state-based. Both could have voted the RNC, both obviously highly influential roles. But curious of your kind of general thoughts, general analysis on like the party as an infrastructure itself, and then maybe some different kind of improvements or reforms that either you've recommended or would recommend to kind of make it a little bit more of a, let's say, a professionalized vehicle.
First of all, I would recommend follow ORP bylaws. Bylaws there to protect us. And so we would not make mistakes and do things which is not within boundary of the bylaws. That's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is got to stop infights. And we play into other side's hand. And Republican infights and is not going to elect Republicans. Now, I would have no problem if you want to have infights, not infights, Republican candidates, conservative challenge, moderate in the primary. But after the primary, and especially election year, you got to get behind Republican nominees. Good example was Mule Buehler. Actually, during his campaign, he got nominated, and during as our candidate for governor, and during his campaign, he attacked Trump several times. I'm a huge Trump supporter, but when I am asked at an RNC level and from the White House and also from Republican Governors Association, I defend him every single time. The reason is you got to look at a big picture. And yes, I'm not happy with he attacked Trump, but at the same time, he's a much better candidate than Tate Brown. Mm-hmm. So, you got to put this kind of stuff in proper perspective. Another thing is, if you're going to flip Oregon, and you have to still go through the stage, let's say, turn Oregon into purple, and we control one of the House chamber, and then we don't have to deal with the garbage came out of the legislature. And so change is not going to happen overnight. And last thing is you got to be consistent. Consistent means you can't say I'm for this, then turn around, you do everything and just opposite of what you believe in. And as a party, you will lose voters real fast. So that would be my 3 advice to current situation.
Thank you. Our last question before we wrap up. What do you think is Oregon Republicans' best opportunity to pick up a seat in 2024? And that could be statewide office, that could be congressional, that could be legislative. What do you think is our top pickup opportunity in 2024 in Oregon?
I think all from House side and knowing the number we just discussed, and those 6 seats should be targeted, right? And we have an opportunity to flip. And of course, we may not be able to flip Senate, but at least we should be able to pick some seats in the Senate. And the other 2 seats, I think we could, and 6 congressional district seat. And the other one is Secretary of State. And those are our picking, those are our opportunity to increase elected Republicans office holders. That was one of the reasons I want Trump to come to Oregon to fight.
Well, that's great. And I think generally I agree with your analysis. I think that the 6th congressional district was so close last time. There's, it's still a new district. And then that Secretary of State seat, just because of all of the scandal, I think voters are going to take a look, just like they did with Dennis Richardson in 2016, and look and say, maybe we need some Republican counterbalance. And absolutely the Oregon House, I think, is, like you said, so few votes separating it that there's a real opportunity for Republicans to make big gains, or, in a good year, really flip that chamber to bring that balance.
Absolutely. And the other thing I told the president, the newly elected Democrat governor, poll number was in the tank, 44%, 3 months into her job. This is unheard of, worse than Kay Brown. So when you see this kind of number, you say, we do have an opportunity, and we need to work towards our goal and flip Oregon.
Well, Solomon, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and coming on the show. The last question is generally the easiest that we ask people, but if folks want to learn more about you, if they want to learn more about your work, maybe they want to follow you on Twitter, or subscribe to a newsletter or anything like that, where do folks generally go to find out more info about you or follow your work?
I have my Twitter account and at Solomon Yu. Then I have Facebook, Solomon.Yu, and they can follow me on both.
Great. Well, Solomon, thank you so much again for your time, and thank you everybody for listening. Please make sure to rate 5 stars and check us out on YouTube, where we post all the videos. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.